Hi, folks, and welcome to Prep with a Pro Week 18. We're really at the very pointy end now. It's only 12 days before, well, not even that, 10 days, I think, before I step on the plane and head over to England. We'll go through where I'm at now, but I'm in an extremely good place. Now then, hang on to your hats, go get a coffee. We have a lot to get through again this week and I'm just going to talk through this little photo here, and I may have a little bit of a rant, so just bear with me. As you know, I prep people for competition. My lady on yesterday, she brought me this lovely little present, and bless her, she's been stalking me on Instagram, of course, and knows that Fourth Chapter is one of my favourite cafes for breakfast. So bless her, she's got me a voucher for breakfast. But that's not quite the point of this. The point of this is what's written on her message. Now, this lady, it's her very first show. She's come in 4 weeks early. She's looking fantastic. We're doing a practice peak week for her this week because I'm away when her show is on, which is a shame because I'd love to be there for her. But the key to her message is, and this is where I'm going to get into a bit more detail about diet and stuff and what I've been showing you over the course of the prep, is the fact that all the way through the prep, she's been eating a lot of food, so she hasn't felt deprived. And this is my point. On comp prep, you should not feel deprived. And if you are feeling deprived, you need to have a talk to your coach as to how you can alleviate that. Because I don't believe, and I think I've shown you all the way through, you can get to enjoy lots of good food and also get into show condition as well. Comp prep does not have to be about who does it the toughest. It's not about deprivation or being a martyr to a cause. You can have a life and get into comp prep show. And I think if there's anything you take away from this series, it's that comp prep needs to flex with your life. Okay, comp prep should fit in around your life. It should not become your life. Okay, as you know, I went away. I mean, I'm going to keep reiterating this. I went away for a week with no gym, lots of buffet foods, and I didn't put on any weight because I know how to manage it. I have had a blowout, but I know how to mitigate it. I've had a whole day off. I know how to mitigate. This particular competitor here, this week, because she's doing so well, she gets a double refeed. Last week, I gave her the whole weekend off with Mother's Day, and her kids made her pancakes and bacon for breakfast. Good for them, and she thoroughly enjoyed it, and she's earned it, so why not? She's been to a wedding as well, and I refused to let her take pots of little tubs of food as well. She got to enjoy the wedding and enjoy the food at the wedding. Why? Because I know how to build in life with your comp prep or make your comp prep fit into your life. Okay. The way I do that, and I do get this question a lot, is particularly around what see people don't understand what diet style I follow. People like to put things in boxes. Now, I don't follow a box. My diet does not fit in a box. I focus on overall health and nutrition. I focus on the micros. Every meal I have or every day, I make sure I get every vitamin covered, every mineral covered. I get my fats in, all, saturated, monosaturated, polyunsaturated fats. I make sure I get a good variety of proteins. When I'm doing some carbs, I get a good variety of carbs in as well. Okay. If anything, if there is a style that I follow, it's probably, I guess, the volume style of eating. I like a lot of food. As a former obese person, and in my family, food is a big thing. Okay, we always have lots of food. So maybe there's an inner fatty in me still, but I do like to eat a lot of food. So I have developed an eating style that allows me to not only maximize and optimize my nutrition, but allows me to have a lot of food on my plate. Okay, and you can see here, you can see I'm eating lots and lots of food, and there's a very, very common factor to it. It's brightly coloured. Eat the rainbow. Best thing you can teach, if you're mums and you're competing, the best thing you can teach your kids is to eat the rainbow. because that's how you optimize nutrition, and that's where you get foods that are super high in nutritional value but super low in calories, so you can put a lot on your plate even when you're reducing your calories. Now, like these salads here, some of them have got, this one here I think potentially has got, no, this one doesn't, but this one here has 11 foods in it. Okay, this one's got hemp seeds all over it. Hemp seeds are stuffed full of omega-3s and good fats and amino acids. Okay, look, we've got brightly coloured foods here, lots of green as well. Eggs, good fats, iron, vitamin D. Again, lots of green stuff. So the feature in all of my foods, on all of my meals, is brightly coloured, lots of it, super high nutritional value and super low in calories. That's how I get the volume in, and that's how I can still be eating these amazing foods 2 weeks out from my competition and be in competition shape. And actually, I'll just touch on another thing while I'm here. I'm going to sort of kind of dumb this down a little bit, but I'm going to touch on why diets fail and why a lot of people struggle on comp prep, and why I don't necessarily struggle with the food side of comp prep. It's because I'm sure all of you have heard of those lovely little hormones called ghrelin and leptin. Now, these can be the dieter's worst enemy or the dieter's best friend. And I guess in a way that my eating style, and I didn't know this when I started doing this, but I kind of think that what I'm doing is actually manipulating these two hormones, because ghrelin is the hunger hormone. And this is the reason why willpower fails. This is why all crash diets fail, because ghrelin is produced by the body when the stomach is empty. Okay, your brain is very, very highly tuned to ghrelin because, of course, our caveman, when he didn't have any food and was in danger of starving, ghrelin would kick in, tell the brain you're hungry, so off he'd go and kill a woolly mammoth. Okay, so your brain never ever tunes out from the signals that you get from ghrelin, and that is when you get hungry and your stomach shrinks. That's when ghrelin is produced. If you're on one of these crash diets and you've got one of these pathetic little bars or meal replacement shakes, you're just going to swallow that in a second, and it's not going to fill you up. Now, and this is an important factor to do with leptin. Leptin not only is produced by your fat stores, so as your fat stores get lower, you produce less leptin, but also leptin is produced when your stomach expands. Okay, so if you're on your little crash diet with, like I say, with your crappy little meal replacement bars and tiny little portions of food, you can scoff it down in about 30 seconds flat, and it's not going to expand your stomach. So you're not going to produce leptin. And if you're lower in fat as well, you're going to be producing less leptin anyway. Now, the problem with leptin, of course, is it takes about 20 minutes for it to kick in and register. So by piling up my plate with a huge amount of food that's very low in calorie, highly nutritious, it takes me about 20 minutes to chew through all of that. So do you think that by the time I've got through that, it's slowed me down enough to produce leptin? And that's why I can have these enormous plates of food, even with very, very low body fat, and potentially I'm not producing leptin because I've got no fat on me. I'm at 9.4% body fat at the moment. So potentially I'm not producing that much leptin. So having huge volumes of food, which expand my stomach, it takes me about 20 minutes to eat these meals, is what helps me keep producing leptin and keep this ghrelin monster at bay. Another thing I do, which I haven't actually talked about, is before I eat my huge meal, I guess I preempt the meal by drinking a shaker bottle of water, so about 600 mils of water, or I have a big mug of green tea or something like that. So I kind of preempt the meal so that by drinking a huge amount of water, it already stretches my stomach before I start putting any food into it. So that also helps me with the production of leptin and stops me getting hungry, whilst continuing to maintain fat loss when I'm extremely lean. Okay, so I guess by eating huge volumes of food, this volume method that I've developed is what allows me to, I guess, so easily lose the fat and not succumb to succumb to cravings or, you know, getting willpower failure because I'm hungry all the time because I'm eating tiny little meals. And I recommend that if you're on comp prep and you are eating little tiny meals, I recommend that you start learning how to increase the volume of your meals without increasing the calories. And the way to do that is to, as you can see here, focus on the dark green vegetables. Making sure you're eating very low GI foods. So, the berry fruits are really, really great. If carbs, make sure you're getting into things like sweet potato and pumpkin, which are very sort of low in carbs and quite much more filling. Focus on the green vegetables. These are the things that will keep you full on comp prep and will actually help you continue with your fat loss. Right, rant over. Now, let's get into this week's experiment. As you remember, last week I did a carb front load. I was just showing you how, one of these peak week mechanisms that particularly bodybuilders use. I don't believe in peak week. I probably won't be doing either of these, but I just wanted to illustrate them. Now, I should just make a bit of a note here. I'm kind of playing around with my prep at the moment, by the way. I wouldn't normally do this. I'm just doing this to illustrate this. So I don't advocate that you play around with your prep to the extent that I have. However, if you are in condition, then it could be worth trying these experiments just to see how you react. Because with comp prep, every single prep you do, you're in a different space. So you might need to learn where your body is now. So experimenting can help you learn what you can do with your body and how it reacts. But for a first prep, I don't recommend that you play around with it. I do recommend that you follow your instructions. But certainly for bikini and fitness, I don't believe that you need to do a peak week. It's much more if you're extremely lean. It can make about 1 or 2% difference, but if you're not in condition in peak week, then they're not going to make any difference at all. Like I say, I hit my condition weeks ago, so that gives me the luxury of playing around a little bit with my prep and just learning a bit more about myself. And I'm using this as a learning tool as well as illustrating to you some very common sort of, I guess, methodologies that people might use. Okay, so that being said, the front load. Much higher in carbs than usual, but I did hit my overall calories. And you can see, because I had that pizza blowout, I did do the anabolic fast. And then, although I was carb loading, I kept my calories within the same range that I have been keeping them in. And you could see this nice degradation here of the carbs. So I did 2.5, 2, 1.5, 1, and then I had my refeed day. Okay, so that was the front load, and that's what a front load chart should look like. And I kind of came in nicely. I did hit my lowest on the end of the carb load. On the Saturday, I did hit the 54.9, which was equal to my lowest at the point in time. So I guess you could say that it worked because I did come in at the lowest. However, I didn't feel stage ready. I was feeling, I didn't have that hollow feeling. I talked about the hollow feeling and I didn't have that. So although on the scale and visually it looked like I was okay, I didn't have the hollow feeling that I wanted. So with the backload, now the method I actually ended up using was I did a 2-day backload and I loaded up. I was aiming for between 8 to 10 grams of carbs per kilogram, which gave me between 384 and 540 for the first day. And that was going to be all high GI carbs. Then the second day, I was aiming for about 5 grams per kilogram of much lower GI carbs. Now, the trouble with trying to load up with between 384 and 540 grams of carbs, if you think about the calories, that's going to blow out my calories a huge amount. So this is why overall, my overall food calories for this week is up, and my carbs are massively up, and my protein's way down. In order to try and keep some semblance of normality to my daily calorie average, I had to drop the protein on the high carb day. And there you can see it. So this was the high carb day. Now, initially I thought I'd really struggle with this. I'm extremely good at low carb diets. I'm very good at coming up with high fat diets, which of course are low carb diets. Now, coming up with a diet that's low in protein and high in carbs, I have to admit, I really had to think very hard about this. I was like, how am I going to get these carbs in? Because most of the carbs that I eat and like and that work for my body tend towards the lower GI stuff, like berry fruits I love and cherries I love. You know, yes, I do like bananas and stuff, but things like bread and pasta and white rice bloat me, and I don't really like eating them just because they bloat me. You know, if I'm going to have a carby grain, I'll go for quinoa because it fits in with my philosophy of maximizing my nutrition. So initially, I kind of really struggled with this. I thought, oh God, I'm going to have to eat a whole packet of rice cakes or something like this, or just resort to lollies. But I didn't have to resort to packets of lollies, and I did figure it out. And I am a nutrition magician. I went for kitchery. Now, I may have talked about kitchery before. It's an Ayurvedic dish, which is actually generally used as a detox dish. And it's made with white rice, and usually it's got things like lentils in it as well. But lentils would be too low GI in this case. Remember, I'm trying to stuff as much glycogen into me as possible, as quickly as possible, so it has to be high GI. And then I thought, well, if it's just white rice, there's so many calories in it. How am I going to get the volume? Remember, I've just talked about the volume eating. You know, how am I going to make the plates of food big? But the brilliant thing about kitchery is, so I took out the lentils to make sure it was just white rice. But then you can just load it up with super low calorie veggies. Um, so I just ate my lovely kitchery. Immediately after my workout, I did have some cranberry juice because that's basically just sugar. So that just whacked a ton of carbs into me straight away. But then, in order to maximize my nutrition and keep with my volume philosophy, um, I went with kitchery, and it was lovely. So I had a whole day of kitchery, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But you can see, as a result of this backload, um, fortunately, it coincided with my refeed day. I was really good for the whole week because I decided I was going to backload on the Thursday. That coincided with my refeed day, so I was actually okay to up the calories. But you can see that even then, I've gone over what I normally do on a refeed. Now, here's the actual backload. So I'll actually need to explain these in a second, but you can see I managed to get over 400 calories, which was just over the 8 grams per kilogram. And then the following day, I was around about 250 grams of carbs, and that came in at just over 5 grams per kilogram. So that's my backload. And then to Saturday, I kept it relatively low carb, and same on Sunday. Now, I just want to explain these ones because I've got slightly higher carbs here. Last week I was feeling, I guess I was struggling a little bit. Every time by the end of the day, I was really starting to struggle a bit. Sorry, on the Friday I was, but on the highest carb day and the second highest carbs day, I was fine. And what I figured out is, and this is why you must always be learning on your comp prep, okay? Because you're always in a different position. What worked last year or last season or last show might not work for this show. Now, last year, I, as we've been going through this prep and I've been showing you my spreadsheets of my macros and all the rest of it, I've been trying to get up to the 70% protein and 5% carbs, which is where I was last year. But this year, I just haven't managed to do that, or not consistently, and it's been bugging me. Now, last year, my daily schedule, if you like, I cycled to the gym, which was 7K, but where I worked was only 2K from the gym. So I had a very, very short cycle, and then I was at work, and my cycle home was only 5K. So I was only doing sort of, 12K a day. This year, however, I've got my 7K cycle to the gym, I've got a 7K cycle to work, and then I've got an 8.5K cycle home, which takes 45 minutes. So I'm kind of coming home, I'm kind of more of doing endurance work. What I've figured out is I actually do need a higher carb diet because I'm doing this extra 45 minutes of cycling every day, this extra 60 kilometers a week. I actually am kind of a bit more of an endurance athlete than I was last year. So I do actually need those carbs. So that's why these 2 days here, I did bump my carbs up to 75 grams, which is only 25 grams over what I've been trying to get to. But damn, it made a difference. It's only 4 rice cakes. Both days I felt much better. I had any, I was able to focus on my work all through the day. So that's been a big learning for me this year. Is the fact that extra cycling has meant that I've had to adapt my diet again and adapt what I'm doing to that circumstance. So anyway, by the by, I thought we'd go through that. But there we go. Here's the backload, over 400 gram carbs, and then about 250 the following day. So what did I look like throughout the week? So Monday, pretty standard, looking a little bit puffy. Tuesday, 55.3. So yep, right back on track where I've been. Wednesday, bang on track, no change in the weight. Legs are looking nice and hard, still looking nice and hard through the middle. Looking a little bit leaner there, I think. Then Thursday, this was amazing. So this was before the carb up. And you can see from the difference between Wednesday and Thursday, I just, look at my legs. My legs just came in beautifully. And it was kind of weird. On Wednesday afternoon, I was at work and I was wearing a sleeveless top. And one of the guys had been looking at me weird all day. And I'm like, I was starting to get really paranoid. I was like, what are you looking at? And he actually eventually said to me, are you looking even leaner than you usually do? And I was like, well, don't know really. Anyway, so Thursday we rock up at the gym and it's back and triceps. And look at this. My trainer was like, far out. I have never seen you look like this. And I actually have never looked like this. I have never looked this lean, dry, or hard. And I'm absolutely stoked. And as I did my measurements, I came in at 9.4%. I've never cracked the 10%, so I'm absolutely thrilled with this. But you see, I was still 54.9. So I'd hit my lowest again. So this was fantastic. Friday, after those 400 gram carbs, look what happened. So I put on 1.5 kilos. And yes, you can see I'm softer through the middle. I'm softer through the leg. I'm just soft everywhere. So I was like, okay, chill out. Don't panic. We've got one more day to go. So Friday we did 250 grams. So I was like, well, what am I going to look on Saturday? And remember, Saturday potentially could have been my show day if I'd done this as a backload. And although I wasn't feeling hollow. So I took the photos and I was like, yeah, look, I'm okay, looking a little bit harder. Legs have come up okay. But then I went to the gym and I was like, shit, under stage lights, yes, I'm going to look really good. But then this happened. I was absolutely amazed. I've dropped 0.5 kilo. So I've had 650 grams of carbs in the last 2 days. I'm not feeling hollow. I don't think that I'm as lean as I ought to be, but I dropped 0.5 kilo, which really blew me away. Did the backload work? Well, yes, potentially it did. I dropped an extra 0.5 kilo, and I could only think that that's going to be water weight. So my body has just sucked up 650 grams of carbs in 2 days, which has really, really surprised me, to be quite honest. And you can see I'm just veining everywhere, which of course is exactly what you want on stage. So I have to say, I think the backload has worked. Okay, so let's do the side-by-side comparison. So here I am on Monday, and you see soft. Tuesday still a bit soft. Wednesday I hardened up nicely, even though the weight was the same. Kind of a bit weird that actually. Then Thursday, although the weight dropped, I kind of think I actually looked a bit better through the middle on Wednesday. But that's a bit weird, given the fact that by Thursday I should have been at my most glycogen depleted. I should have looked the hardest and leanest on Thursday, really. I mean, it's certainly reflected on the scales, but it just doesn't really come through in the photographs. Then Friday, after that massive carb up, so remember I had 400 grams of carbs in me, I still look quite hard, but I'm definitely thicker through the middle here compared to Saturday. And this is always my issue, is looking thicker through the middle. So I really have to manage my food carefully the day before my show to make sure that I come in nice and lean through the middle. And like I say, this is where I like this hollow feeling, because then I know I'm going to be lean through the middle as well. But this is what was the surprising thing, this big drop in weight from my leanness on Saturday. And to start with, initially I was like, what on earth? I was racking my brain, what on earth could have caused this? But you remember a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about this theory about when the 2 weeks before your period is due is when you lose the most fat. Now, look at this. Today is the 20th, and I hit that 2 week out from my period. So potentially that was last week's tiny, tiny little loss, and then a bigger fat loss all of a sudden this week. Even though I had all of those carbs, it's just dried me out. And I've just found that absolutely fascinating. Maybe there is an element of truth in this. So it's certainly going to be interesting over the next 2 weeks just to see how much extra I lean up. I thought maybe I was going to be on stage about a kilo heavier than last year. Last year I was on stage at 53.5, and I was kind of hoping I've sort of put on some muscle. But if I'm down at nearly 54 now, it's starting to look like that I may not have actually put on that much muscle, even though I'm looking really, really seriously much harder than before. But look, it's going to be fascinating the next 2 weeks just to see how much I do change. All right, so how am I looking? Pretty damn good, actually. I'm really happy with how I've come up. You can see I've got this lovely hardness now in my legs. Really, really happy with that. And I've even got some striations there through my glutes, which is absolutely awesome. Actually, now I just noticed something here, and I just wanted to touch on this about bikinis. We haven't covered bikinis. A very common question you see on the forums with bikinis is, where should my connectors sit? Your bikini needs to be made to your shape, okay? And that's why you should work with an experienced bikini maker. You can, because all of the categories are about balance and proportions and symmetry, what the judges are looking for is they kind of cut you in half, top and bottom, and they actually check to see whether the length of your torso and the length of your legs are in proportion. If you happen to have a slightly longer body than legs, or slightly longer legs than body, you can use your bikini to kind of even it up. And I just want to illustrate this to you because I actually have a slightly longer body in proportion to my legs. So what I need to do with my bikini connectors is I need to have them sitting significantly above the top of my hips. Now, if you had longer legs in proportion to your torso, you would actually have your bikini connectors sitting just under your hip bone to try and make your body appear longer than your legs. So if your legs are shorter than your body, you need to have your bikini connectors above your hips. And if your body is shorter than your legs, you need to have your bikini connectors sitting just under your hips. Now you can see in this bikini here, this is my beautiful velvet one. I absolutely love this one. It's so comfortable. And you can see how high my bikini connectors are sitting. And what that does is you can see the judge's eyes will be drawn up the outside of my leg all the way up to here. So my legs now all of a sudden stop here. And happily, the connectors kind of sit right in the smallest point of my waist. So I get this lovely taper or sort of lovely sweep all the way up to this tiny point of my waist. Now you can see on this bikini here, the connectors are sitting a lot lower. There's the tiny point of my waist, which is where the blue one sits. But this one's sitting significantly lower. So my legs actually kind of stop about 2 or 3 inches lower than they do with this bikini. Okay, and it sort of throws off, it doesn't throw off my symmetry too much, but you can see that my legs look actually a little bit shorter than wearing this bikini. Okay, so when I have my bikinis, I always try and pull the connectors up as much as I possibly can. And you can kind of see it here. Look how high that's sitting there, sitting right above my hip, whereas this is sitting just on my hip. Okay, and my legs appear just a lot shorter. So there's a little tip for bikinis. Anyway, so to carry on with how I'm looking, pretty bloody good. Very happy. Look how I'm tying hamstrings. glutes and hams are looking great. Really happy with that. My butt's looking good. Legs are looking nice and hard. Yeah, look, I'm absolutely thrilled with how I've come up this year. And now that I've potentially kicked into this extra little fat loss phase, who knows, I might even come in a bit leaner. So that would be amazing to see. Okay, let's get to the numbers. And I'm going to do these in a little bit more detail than I have been doing for the last couple of weeks. You recall that during the week I actually upped my carbs to about 75 grams a day, which is more than I've been wanting to do. Sorry, excuse me. I've only been managing to get my macros at about 65% protein and 15% carbs. And it just seems to be that with this extra cycling, I actually really do need those extra carbs. So I'm changing my diet. I'm going to change my diet this week. I'm going to make sure that I try and aim for those macros there, the 65, 25 fat, 15 carbs. And what I'm also going to do is, because of that drop this week and the fact that I'm looking so extremely hard and the fact that my body has just soaked up 650 grams of carbs and then still come in, kind of indicates to me that I perhaps actually need to reverse a little bit and start eating a little bit more food generally. I don't want to look, I want to look full and big, and at the moment I am. Those photos on Thursday were just amazing. If I look like that on stage, I'll look fantastic. But if I start losing too much more, then I run the risk of starting to look scrawny, and I just don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is, on a day-to-day basis, I'm sitting at roughly 1,600 calories a day. I'm going to increase that to about 16, round about the 1650 mark. Now, in practice, that really doesn't mean much difference, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in one piece of fruit a day, like an apple or something, and I'm going to add in about 150 to 200 grams of about 150 grams of sweet potato. That will give me the extra carbs, and it'll bump up my calories by about 50 or so. Or will it? Well, actually, no. I'll just leave it as an apple, because that's 48 calories or so. So it'll be an apple, or it will be about 100 grams of sweet potato. So one of those two is, in real terms, that's all it means. But I'll add that at my workout snack in the morning, so that I have some carbs in the morning as well. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a tiny reverse and watch how it changes this week. And if I still drop, then next week, which will be my final week, then I'll increase it a little bit more. But I'll just bump it up that tiny bit. It's very cautious, I know, but it might just slow things down a little bit and make sure that I don't start looking scrawny. So that's what I'm going to do with the calories. Overall, I'll probably still, it'll probably, I've been sitting around about, overall, over the whole course of a week, I've been sitting around about the 15% deficit, and that's obviously been enough. And during on a day-to-day basis, it's kind of around about the 20% deficit. So if I just shift it up a little bit, that should slow things down and just make sure that I don't start looking stringy and over dieted. So with those numbers, my average this week is 55.3, which kind of puts me behind schedule, strangely enough. But my lowest point for the week of 54.3, that drop now of 54.3, has actually brought me in. I'm still sitting about a week ahead, despite all of these ups and downs and weirdness going on, and these experiments, which, like I say, I don't recommend you do necessarily unless you really know what you're doing. I'm still absolutely perfectly on track, and you can see that I'm looking amazing. So that's what's going to happen with the diet this week. Okay, I think that's it then. Blimey, we've covered an absolute ton. If you're still following, thank you for following, and I hope you found that useful, actually. So you've seen the result of two peak week protocols. So the results, I guess, okay, actually. Both of them seem to have worked. And this week I'm just going to do a normal week, because it's literally 10 days before I get on the plane, and I'm straight into peak week. So I'm starting to get very excited. And bless, I talked to my mum in the week, and bless her, she's got and invited all of her friends. So I might even have a cheer squad. So I'm starting to get a little bit nervous as well as very excited. Anyway, so have a good week. I will talk to you next week just before I get on the plane. So take care. Have a good week.